Good evening, Bennington. Welcome to the Bennington Select Board meeting for June 22nd, 2020. I'm Donald Campbell. I'm the chair of this board, and I am going to invite our members to please introduce themselves, starting with you, Bruce.
Welcome. My name is Bruce Lee Clark. I welcome you to the meeting.
I am Jean Connor.
Good evening, Jeannie Jenkins.
Jim is muted.
Jim, you're muted still.
Good evening. This is still Jim Carroll.
Good evening, Sarah Perrin.
We have three of our staff members here. We have Stuart Hurd, our town manager, Daniel Monks, our assistant town manager, and Nancy Lively, who is taking minutes for us tonight, as well as Cat TV. Before we start the meeting, I'm going to read our standard statement here that due to the COVID-19 pandemic state of emergency declared by Governor Scott and pursuant to Addendum 6, Executive Order 1-20 Act 92, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location to attend this meeting. However, the public may view it on Cat TV and call in at 1-646-558-8656, entering the meeting code 830-4591-5713, which I'll put up on the screen in just a minute. If technology fails us, the meeting will be continued at a time and place to be determined. All votes that are not unanimous will be done with a roll call vote in accordance with law. So the first thing I'd like to do tonight, before we even adjust the agenda, is to share the number which I just mentioned to you on the screen. And when it's time for citizens' comment, this is the way that you access the meeting. You dial in 646-558-8656 and enter the meeting ID 830-4591-5713 and enter pound twice when prompted. So this meeting ID 830-4591-5713. This changes every week for security reasons, every meeting for security reasons, and I apologize for the inconvenience. So the first thing we need to do is slightly reorder our agenda. With the board's permission, I would like to move agenda item number 2, the BBC work plan and budget, to the third slot, and move the third item, the grant amendment for Pleasant Street, to the second slot. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so we are adjusting the agenda so that our second item of business will be the grant agreement and the third will be the BBC work plan. But first, we have a consent agenda to approve, and that includes the minutes of June 8th, the warrants as circulated, and hopefully you've had a chance to ask any questions you might have had of the manager, and if you have not, now would be the time. And also the revised liquor license, which went out late last week, I think. So for the purposes of discussion, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Bruce. May I have a second? Thank you, Jean. Okay, questions? Jean, you have your hand up.
Nancy, line 197 is actually really funny. It says Miss Connor as an inpatient, and I'm an impatient person.
We couldn't hear the first part of what you said, although we do like,
Right.
we get the idea that you're impatient, not an inpatient. But what line was it? For Nancy Lively's benefit, what line was it, please, Jean?
Honestly, I wasn't thinking ahead. I was just.
Oh, okay.
Where was that again, Jean? Just point me in the right direction.
line 197.
Oh, 197. Okay. All right. I will change that.
Thank you.
Little, what do they call that? Little Freudian slip or something?
Yeah.
So, any other comments on the minutes of June 8th, the warrants, or the liquor licenses? Seeing none, I would ask you all to unmute yourself, please. And all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Consent agenda has been approved. Thank you very much. Next item of business is the grant agreement for 219 Pleasant Street, and I also didn't send this to Shannon Barsati, so she's not with us, this link.
Well, Shannon is actually on vacation this week, so she's asked me to fill in for her.
Darn, I shouldn't have confessed to my mistake then, all right?
Yeah, you did fine. Yes, this is a grant that was applied for 219 Pleasant Street. It's Hale Resources, LLC. They were a private developer, and actually the first private developer that we know of to apply for these funds. And actually, the resolution that we are asking you to approve tonight and authorize the chair to sign is the actual resolution of accepting the award. At the present time, we do not have the entire grant documentation, so that may come back to you at some point in the future. But usually we accept the award, the grant agreement comes down, we run it by council, and then the board approves the grant agreement. So that's the process we'll be looking to do again this year. This development is a 10-unit residential rental housing development. It's located in the town's historic district. And as I said, this is the first of a private developer actually accessing these funds from the state of Vermont. And we're very pleased to work with Mr. Hale and his business associates to get this done. So I'm asking the board to waive the reading of the resolution and authorize the chair to sign it.
And to be clear, we've already reviewed this and approved it in concept. This is not,
Right, this is
nothing
step.
new to us. This is something
Right.
that we have been working on for a long time. So hopefully there are not any questions because, as I say, it's been in the pipeline for a long time. And as you will recall, and Sarah, maybe you weren't on the board when we discussed this, but one of the reasons that this VCDP funding is available for this is because they're working with trying to figure out how to get the private sector involved in affordable housing delivery. And it does have affordability restrictions. They're not permanent, but they are kind of long range, medium to long range. And so we get a lot of benefit out of it. We as a community get a lot of benefit out of this, and we also get to have some housing fixed up. So this is why we think it's a good idea. If I may speak for the board. Go ahead, Sarah.
Yeah, so I am familiar with this, and I just wondered, I knew a little bit about this, and I understood that residents did have the option to move back in. Is that still happening? And if so, do you know how many?
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question, Sarah.
I understood that residents had the option to move back in.
That's correct. Yes.
So do you know how many?
I don't have those numbers, and they're not included in the memorandum that went out to you. But usually with these projects where they relocate people, they do have an option to move back in. Some exercise that option, others decide to move on. In this particular case, I just don't know the specifics on how many will decide to move back in. Donald, you're muted.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the trucks go by loudly here. Yes, good program, good loan, good thing for Bennington. Invest in our local contractors, improve the housing for people that live there. Some affordability restrictions to keep it affordable. Nothing not to like about this. I'd look for a motion to move.
I have a question, clarification. Yeah, you just mentioned that local contractors will be used, and as you may well remember, I've always stipulated that, and I wonder if that is the case with this grant.
Well, this is, if I could add, this is John Hale and his company. He works principally with local contractors to do those things that he can't do. So that's going to be the case, Jim. I'm very confident.
Important, thanks.
So do I have a motion on this grant agreement?
Motion to accept this grant agreement as written.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jim. Any further discussion? If not, I would ask you to unmute yourselves. There's nobody in the waiting room, so there's no public comment on this. I'd ask you to unmute yourselves and say, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you.
that's great. Let's get John Hale going on that. Next item of business is, where'd he go? Next item of business is the BBC work plan and budget. And just as I was saying that, he was trying to get into the meeting, but now he's not. So John Shanahan, if you hear this, please try to log in again. You had the correct information. You were just in the waiting room for a minute. Here he comes. Sorry, Bennington, we're working with the technology here. John Shanahan, I think. We have in front of us the Better Bennington Corporation annual budget and work plans. This is something we review every year, and it's as much a budget as it is a set of accomplishments that BBC wants to get done. It's quite a long list. I have it on the computer here, and I can share it. John, I'm going to unmute you. I hope that's all right. I'm going to try to unmute you anyway. I'm going to ask to unmute you. Well, we're not getting audio on John Shanahan, but I will.
How's that done?
There you go. All right, great. John, can you see the screen from where you are?
Yeah.
Okay. I am going to share I'm going to share my screen, which is the BBC annual budget, and let you walk us through. We have a cover letter from you explaining that it's a dire situation and a lot may change, and we appreciate that. And we'll have some questions for you about that. And then we have the budget, and then we have the work plan. So where would you like me to start, John?
Well, with the cover letter, just so it's on record, the board of the BBC plus the
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties, John. We can't hear you all of a sudden. Have you muted yourself? John, you are not muted, but we do not hear you. If you hear us, you're
adjust them a bit to change our focus more toward our members and what they're going to be facing in the next 12 months. That said, for the work plans, as far as the budget goes, a large part of our income is based on events. And as we know, we've lost all of that income in this year's budget already. And there's no promise in sight that we can really rely on it for next year also. So what I did is just remove the event income and adjust the budget accordingly. But then following what's coming through the state and talking with our representatives and all the legislators, grant income is becoming available for not-for-profits in an effort for us to be able to help our member businesses and property owners. So I replaced lost event income with the expected grant income. But as we know, with grant income, a lot of it is earmarked for specific activities instead of just general fund operating expenses. So I followed through on some of the activities to coincide with the income that we should be expecting from grants, for starters.
Yep. Jim Carroll, I had to mute you there. I hope you don't mind.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
we heard you blow your nose, but then we.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that I had my mic off.
That's all right. It's all technology, and there goes a big truck. So, John, we are very sympathetic to this. It's obvious that you can't do some of your main events here, but would it be useful to scroll down through the budget? I mean, so I looked at this budget pretty carefully a couple times, and it looked like you zeroed out almost everything you could. You zeroed out travel, you zeroed out training, you zeroed out all sorts of different things that you might otherwise have had in this budget. So it looks to me like you are in full belt tightening mode. Is that about right? John Shanahan, we can't hear you right now. I don't know what's the matter with his audio, folks, but for some reason we can't hear him. So we'll just have to carry on as best we can without him. I'm going to scroll down a little bit on this budget and let everybody kind of see it if you're interested. And this is the first page of the budget. And you can see that a lot of things in the income line have been zeroed out, particularly arts events and Fallapalooza are both at zero in this budget. If John comes back online, I would like to ask him, it looks like Mayfest is still in for 2021, on the income side anyway, which leads to about $9,000 in income after you net out the expenses. So it's hopeful that we'll be open for Mayfest by next spring, but I guess we can't know that. So, Don, I don't know if you're able to fuss with your audio, but we are not able to hear you. So I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions about this budget. Let me go back up. The amount that is being the downtown improvement district funding is $79,637. So that's the part that would be paying for the bulk of their budget.
And that, Donald, that is the same as requested last year.
Yeah, so it's level funded from last year. Jeannie, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm thinking Stu may be able to answer this, but I'm looking at the payroll, the salary expenses, and it looks like it goes up on a quarterly basis, and I'm wondering if that's if that's related to Bill's work, to the contracted employee working with the BBC.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We pay his salary through the general fund, about 14,000 something. I can't remember what it is right off the top of my head, but the BBC pays the rest of the expenses, including FICA and those kinds of things.
Okay. Thank you.
John Shanahan, welcome back. I'm sorry the technology is a little prickly here.
It's all right. How far did I get before you lost me?
We lost you pretty early on, and so we waded into the budget on our own a little bit. As far as we got was for me to, in this first page, was for me to identify that you've zeroed out most of your income events, that you've held steady your downtown improvement district funding from last year, that you still are thinking you'll be able to do Mayfest in the spring for a total net of about $9,000. Which may or may not be possible, and that probably falls into the category of things that you were warning us you may have to be flexible about.
Yeah, in Mayfest, why that's in there, it's kind of tricky. This year, we had to cancel after we received all the applications in, so it was a matter of returning about $12,000 to $14,000, or talking with the vendors. Do you want us to hang on to it in hopes that we can do something before the end of this year, or just apply it to next year? and that still hangs in the air. Some of them are starting to ask for refunds, others are saying hold on to it. So it's kind of hard for us to decide if we're going to have to apply it to next year's income, even though we already received it this year, or actually continue to return it and have people reapply if we're allowed to have events next year. So I kind of went the middle of the road. Thinking whatever way we fall, it'll be the closest number we can work with.
Jeannie, go ahead. Uh-oh, Jeannie's having trouble there.
I think, John, I had just asked about the salary line, and I think Stu responded, but why it changes quarterly, like it'll go for several months at 4966.
Every once in a while we have a 3-week period as opposed to a 2-week pay period next quarter.
Okay.
And I was coming in, I think at this point, Bill Clark, our street person, is outside of this budget completely. That's a contract position with the town.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, John.
So this is the first page of the budget. I'll scroll down to the second page of the budget. I don't know if this may not be very much fun watching on TV, but it shows your total expenses is about just over $106,000 for the year.
Right.
And a lot of uncertainty in here about events in the spring and refunds. I think we get that, but level funding for the town businesses, there's probably never been a harder time for our downtown businesses. So level funding is really important this year. Not increasing is really important. And
we thought so too. We went for about 10 years without asking for an increase because those were difficult years as well. Not like this year or this coming year is going to be. And it made it difficult for us to get caught up. So our board had decided, each year to go a cost of living, at least to keep up with expenses. And it did put us behind. And however, this year we're finding ourselves in a situation where our members are going to be in a very difficult situation for the next 12 months. And it just wasn't the year to do it. So when it came to expenses, we did cut almost across the board, except for the 5,400. Those are pretty much set expenses. Our insurances, leases, telephone, and internet. Everything else we cut down to percentages of our income.
I don't know, John, if this is possible. It's probably in the wild category, but do you know if anybody has pursued the idea of bringing down some of the state's COVID relief funding for DIDs around the state? It feels to me like Governor Scott has been trying to do a lot with businesses in mind, and maybe this is something that could be done on a statewide basis to help the downtowns around the state. It's not up to you, but do you know if there are any efforts along those lines?
Not specifically for the Vermont Downtown Program. However, in the next stimulus package, which just passed the Senate, there is a funding for not-for-profits. Not-for-profits in arts and culture, not-for-profits in childcare. There's also not-for-profits in economic development. And that is the funding I was speaking about earlier, or the first round anyways, that the Vermont Downtown Program, when we meet, that is what we're going to be after to create programs that will help the downtown merchants.
I get it. Great. Seems like a good avenue to pursue.
Yeah, so far, and a lot of that is still unknown, and the rest of the funding is unknown as well. So we're just meeting on a weekly basis, sharing ideas, trying to be prepared for what might be coming down the road. But as it's changing, that's why I was changing our work plans along with our members of the Vermont Downtown Program, as far as flexibility has to be number one for the next 12 months. Our committees, our boards, and our income and expense.
Jeannie, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
I do. And John, you might have talked about this while you were not with us, sort of. But can you talk a little bit about how you see the BBC sort of pivoting in this moment to focus more on downtown businesses? Are there different ways that you're thinking the organization will work?
Well, it's not, Jeannie, changing our focus on our business. It's always been the focus.
Right.
It's changing our focus or keeping our focus fluid to whatever they're going to get hit with next. The restaurant reopening right now, they just went up to the 50%, but we know that's not a guarantee. So we've been working with the restaurants and encouraging them to do the outside seating, the delivery. We worked with the legislators to pass the legislation for liquor sales with the mules. And it's moving back toward a positive situation. However, 2 months from now, we could be moving in the other direction where they're shutting back down again, which is already happening in some areas. If that's the case, then what? Do we try to focus more on expanded outside seating if it is allowed? Our retailers, probably the biggest focus of working with your retailers right now is creating a platform and training our merchants to join the online marketplace. Right now, the shops are reopening, but unfortunately, over the last 4 months, those of us who haven't been big online shoppers have been forced into it and are now becoming even more comfortable with it. And so it made the competition, no matter where we go in the next 12 months, even more difficult, because a lot more people are now comfortable with shopping online and will probably continue to do so as we move forward. So it's a kind of a, if you can't beat them, join them scenario. And a lot of our merchants aren't savvy enough. They don't have the technology to, or the staffing to join the online marketplace. So that has been a big discussion of the Vermont Downtown program in making sure that we bring everybody online and become a part of that marketplace. So no matter what happens in the future, they're also part of that platform. Property owners are, go ahead.
I was just going to say, this might be a good segue into some of your work plan stuff. I think I don't want to have us get too mired in the budget here, because the more exciting part of this is really all the things that you get done for the relatively small amount of money that goes into this. But this is 4 pages long, and so I think what I might do is I might stop sharing the screen at this point, and just let you give us. You have this in front of you. I think I might let you give us the highlights, what you think the highlights are of your work plan from the economic. I recognize that these are the committees, but the economic vitality and the design committee and the others that are listed here.
All right. Let's start then with the economic vitality committee.
Just highlights.
Okay.
Just highlights.
Okay. Downtown, prior to this happening, we're all aware of all the enormously exciting things that are happening. Putnam project being, I think, number one at the top, bringing a lot of new residential units downtown. So we're focusing on the new retail space that will be available and working with that group and getting the right people in there. But also, if not more importantly, welcoming the new residents that will be living downtown. So we added Putnam project, and that will be on our work plans for the next few years. Communication with our members. We do a lot of one-on-one communication, but we want to get it where it's we get a lot more people involved in the conversations instead of one-on-one. Form-based planning, that's a Town of Bennington initiative. We want to make sure that our bylaws and our work plans are in line with that. And then the ongoing is the stuff we do every year, some of it upcoming, which will, regarding the TIF options that'll be now available. I'll keep moving on.
Yep.
The promotion committee, there's the marketing assistance and training. That's at the top to make sure all of our members are part of that platform in the coming months and years. Vermont begins here, our major marketing initiative to make sure that that stays active, current, and we're part of it. And then events. We're not planning any large events, so we're looking at as many small events as we can do that stay within the governor's guidelines and safety guidelines. Design committee. Any day now, we will be opening the little park at 336 after all of these years. And as a reminder, 336 is just part of Spark, and that's a streetscape environment that is welcoming to the new residents that'll be moving downtown, and just getting people on the streets. As the marketplace changes from just retail to arts and entertainment, we want to make our streetscape as inviting as the environment's going to be with the new distillery, the new workspaces. So it's Spark is a town-wide or a downtown-wide initiative that 336 is part of. And then organization, that's our like executive committee. That's mostly internal.
Okay, so questions from the board. Thank you, John, for that presentation. You're a good sport to hang in there with the technological hiccups, but board, do we have any further questions for John Shanahan and the BBC? Go ahead, Jean.
John, I just want to tell you that I'm hearing from people that they're planning on doing a lot more local shopping than maybe they've done in the past to help the downtown. So I'm hearing that from several people. So I just wanted to pass that on to you. And the other thing, I just want a little bit of a clarification on the work plan, the start dates and the target dates. Are those, like, let's just say on the Economic Vitality Committee, so the start date for the Putnam project is September and the target date is April. Are those different years, or does target date mean that's your projected completion date? I was just a little confused about the timing of those.
Yep, no, those are all in the same year, unless it says July to June, which means it's the entire, because this is the fiscal year starting in July. So nothing will start before July in this year's work plan. The Putnam project, we didn't target it to start until September, just to let it get further along in the process. There's not too much we can do right now except refer inquiries. And then April is our date. Once we're assuming it's going to be completely up and running, at least phase one, where we know our role that would best benefit the Putnam management, to put it into place what our role could be for that project. Other ones like form-based planning, where it says target date ASAP, that's an external project that's out of our control. So we want to be on top of it, of course, beginning right away. And then its completion date is when it's ready for us to complete it ourselves.
You don't have to go through them all. It's confusing because some of them span another year and some of them don't. Right.
They're all,
So it's just confusing it was confusing to me because I'm not all that familiar with it.
they all start after July 19, and they all either end before July 20, and then end before June 2021. But if they say June, many times it just means it also goes into the next year. So it's something we'll be working on for the entire 12 months.
So board, I'm going to take just a minute, and John, I'm going to give you just a breather while I put up this dial-in information again. If anybody has any questions on this topic or other topics as we get into them, and you want to participate in this meeting, we welcome your participation. Dial in 646-558-8656. You enter the meeting ID 830-4591-5713 and press pound twice when prompted. So having shared this, I'm going to put it down now and ask the board if there are any further questions for John, and if not, to find out what the staff recommendation on this is. No further comments? No further board questions? Stuart, would you like to offer a staff recommendation on this? I'm going to have to ask you to unmute yourself first, or yeah.
I would ask that the board make a motion to approve the budget as requested at $79,637 annually, which is the same amount as was requested last year.
Okay, board.
I'll move that.
Jean has put a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Jeannie beat Sarah out by a whisker there, but thank you very much for that. So any further discussion about this? I'm pausing just a minute to see if we have any call-in information, but we don't appear to have any callers dialing in at this point, so I'm going to say there's no public comment on this. And I guess I'm going to ask the board, I'm going to call a vote, and I'm going to ask you to unmute yourselves, please. All in favor of the motion to approve the annual budget and work plan of the BBC, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Great. John, good luck. It's going to be a trying year. Try to save our people as much money as you can out there, but thanks for doing all the good work, and tell your board we really appreciate what you do for town.
You bet. Thanks, Don. Thank you, board.
Thank you. So we're going to kick John out of the meeting at this point, although you're welcome to stay, but I'm going to kick you out, put you in the waiting room. And we are going to move on to our next agenda item, which is a community policing update. And Jeannie, I do have this thing I can put up on the screen anytime you want. So you let me know when you'd like that graphic from Curtis Reed put up on the screen. But I'll let you take this item from here.
Well, so I only have 2 items to update on, and then I think Bruce and Jean, if you have things, please do. So I was going to start with reminder about the virtual community meeting, or gathering. So that'd be great if you would put that information up on the screen.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So just a reminder that it is on this Wednesday, June 24th, from 7 to 8:30. You can join the meeting either by Zoom or by watching it on Cat TV. There will be a call-in number if you watch it on Cat TV, so you can ask questions. The point of this really is to launch all of our community work to enhance public safety in Bennington through building greater trust between residents and the police department. And so it is envisioned as an interactive session. So please bring your ideas and your questions and your enthusiasm to this meeting. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. And the second is we are still working on getting the community policing section up on the town website. So hopefully that will be up sometime next week. And we do have a number of resources that are in the queue to go up on the website for all of us to look at.
Jeannie, if I could jump in just for a minute. I don't have this set so you can see the whole thing on my screen, but as you can see, if you could see the bottom part of it, you can see that this is the this is a program of the Vermont Partnership for Fairness and Diversity. This is the independent contractor that we have contracted with to help us through this process. And this is not a select board meeting, a warned select board meeting. And as such, you know, at some level, I think this is really a chance for other voices besides ours to be part of this. So my recommendation to board members is that we not participate at all in this. I think we should, for the most part, really make room for other people to speak and other people to be part of this. We'll have plenty of time with Curtis Reed, and we also don't want to be afoul of the open meeting law by having more than a quorum at the meeting and appearing to, have any business. So I think, for the most part, my opinion would be, and I'm open to other opinions, but my opinion would be that board members, not the work team will want to be on this call probably, but the board members should probably watch this on CAT TV. What do you think about that, Jeannie?
I do think this is an opportunity for other voices. I think this is not our meeting, and I think it's something that we all care about. So I think whatever, I think it doesn't matter whether I don't think it matters whether anyone joins by Zoom or CAT TV, because they have an opportunity in both those settings to ask any questions that they would like. So personally, I'm not concerned about that. And as far as I know, I was on a meeting last week that had 150 participants, and it was very orderly and worked just fine, which surprised the heck out of me. But so I don't think there's an upper limit, but
I was more getting at the open meeting law. Stuart or Dan, do either of you have an opinion for us on this? If this is essentially business of the board, does it make any difference if we're part of the meeting? This is odd territory because it's Zoom, so would be part of the virtual meeting. But what's your recommendation?
I think that board members, all of the board members, can attend a meeting that is not a meeting for you or for you to conduct business. I don't think there's any law, and I don't think the law that we talk about prevents you from attending a meeting such as this with all of you, the majority of you on the meeting. It's just it has to be clear that it's not a board meeting. I think you can remember when Tom Jacobs hosted a meeting at Bennington College, when we first started talking about revitalizing the downtown as a community effort, there was a question raised by a party because a quorum of the board was there and tried to make it an open meeting law violation. The Secretary of State's office denied that was an open meeting law violation, and the state's attorney took no action, and neither did the Attorney General's office. So, I mean, if you all go to a movie, you're not prohibited from doing that. And this is a meeting that is being held by Curtis Reed and his associate. It has to do with town business, but as long as you are not planning to run the meeting or make any decisions, I think you are fine to be there.
How about participating in the meeting? I'm not sure.
I think you can participate. I don't know why you can't. I just think that that you start to cross a line if it becomes a number of board members start to take a position. It could be considered one that you might use in the future. That might become a little bit risky. You start to form an opinion of the board. But I don't, and Dan can shoot me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this would violate the open meeting law or any other requirement to notice the meeting. It is noticed, regardless of whether it's yours or not. And I think you're welcome to attend just as any other citizen.
Dan, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to weigh in?
So I guess what I would say is it's perfectly fine to ask questions, but I wouldn't express opinions that might be considered attempts to come to some sort of consensus of the board. So just be, you know, if you want to ask Curtis a question, ask him a question, but just be real careful not to be looking like you're trying to, you know, form an opinion as a board during the meeting.
So yeah, not be looking like that, but also not be doing that. I think that really the point of this meeting is to connect Curtis with the community and for us to observe, but not steer that meeting. Jean, I see you have your hand up.
Two things. I seem to remember Curtis, you know, telling us to come. I don't think he didn't encourage us to not participate, or at least not watch it. So I guess I'm just curious if what everyone else's recollection is if he gave us any advice along those lines. And the other thing it occurred to me is citizens that live in Pownell and Shaftesbury and obviously North Bennington because they're part of Bennington, but you know, our surrounding communities, I'm assuming they would be welcome to participate. They spend an awful lot of time in Bennington, I'm sure, shopping, visiting friends, you know, working possibly. So I guess I'm just encouraging people that may live in Shaftesbury, Pownell, and other surrounding communities to participate as well if they want.
Yeah, I think Curtis has a lot to teach a lot of people. He's a good man, and I think this will be very interesting. So,
Jean or Bruce, do you have anything that you want to update, or are we covered?
I would only add that I have nothing to update other than I've been handing out this same flyer to any number of people, and if somebody is having difficulty getting it, they can reach me on my email that is available virtually anywhere, apparently. But this is for board members. I think this is a perfect opportunity to listen. And listening is probably the really most important first step to understanding. So that's my suggestion, and that's coming from someone who loves to talk.
And this information is on the website, on the town's website, so it's easily accessible.
and it'll it'll hit the banner one more time too, right?
Yes.
So June 24th, 2020, 7 p.m. Zoom. Gotta get the password, but
And also Cat TV.
And the Cat TV channel has changed. So go to channel 1085. I think some people had difficulty seeing our select board meeting last week because they didn't realize the Cat TV channel had changed.
Mike Cutler, if you can hear this, will Cat TV also be doing this on Facebook Live? I know that's a popular way for some people to see this. Mike may have stepped away from the computer just for a minute, but I think this will probably also be on Facebook Live if it's like our other meetings. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. Put us back on the screen. Any other updates from your team?
I think we're all set.
Okay, great. Look forward to taking this important step and where that takes us. The next item on our agenda is scheduling equipment borrowing. So this is for something that has been in the budget. We've seen it for quite a while now, but it's just now coming to fruition. Stuart, what's the story there?
Yes, this was a truck that you folks approved to be placed in the budget that ultimately was approved by the voters. There were some manufacturing issues and delayed shipping issues. I don't know whether it was related to the pandemic or not, but nonetheless, the truck is now here and ready for purchase. We did include this in our borrowing from the State Highway Fund, which is a 3% fixed interest. And now we must conclude the paperwork. And in order to do so, the board must approve the note, waive the reading and adopt the resolution, approve the non-arbitrage certificate, and authorize the chair to sign each document. There are also several documents that the treasurer must sign, but I did not include those in your packet simply because they would go directly to the treasurer. But this is the final step in receiving the funds. It spreads the purchase of the truck over, I think, oh God, I'm going to get it wrong. I think it's 3 to 5 years, which reduces the impact on our taxpayers.
Stuart, I'm a real interest rate chaser, but I think you meant 2.5%, right?
I'm sorry. It is 2.5%, yes.
So
I was thinking of the Water Resources Fund, which is 3.
I know you have a lot going on, but yeah, so this is a really good rate. It's not quite as good as having the money and being able to pay cash for it, but yes, it spreads it out over the budget years.
And that was actually a specific decision of this board because of the concerns that the budget was, you wanted to make some cuts and reduce the expenditure side last year.
And even out the impact of these things. So
that's correct.
Okay. So we need a motion to approve the note, waive the reading of and adopt the resolution, approve the non-arbitrage certificate, and authorize the chair to sign each document.
I would move that.
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Nobody in the waiting room, so I'm going to say no public comment on this one. All right, please unmute yourselves, and all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That's great. Move that along. Stuart, I'll get you the signed copies of this later on tonight.
Thank you very much.
By email. The next item on the agenda is called Settlement Discussion / Legal Matter. Take us through this, please, Stuart.
Yes, this is a settlement discussion and a settlement offer, so to speak, to settle a case of Alexander versus Hunt et al., which ultimately is the town of Bennington. It arises from a traffic stop in 2016, wherein the individual was found to be in possession of drugs. He was tried and convicted. His case was appealed to the Vermont Supreme Court, who ultimately threw out the evidence based on the fact that the individual had been held at the traffic stop too long, in the opinion of the court. 4 years has passed. We've gone through lengthy mediation with the individual, and we have now reached an opportunity to settle. The settlement will involve our insurer paying Mr. Alexander $30,000. All liability claims will be dismissed and with prejudice, so they'll not be able to be brought again. We are asked to then approve the settlement agreement that our insurer and Mr. Alexander and his attorneys have already approved. So this is the final step in the closing of this long-standing case. All parties agreed that this has gone on long enough, and we all would like to move on. So I'm looking for a motion to authorize VLCT Passive to enter into this final settlement of the Alexander versus Hunt case and lawsuit against the town.
Thank you for that introduction. There may be some questions from the board. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm prepared to make a motion, actually.
Okay, go ahead.
That I would move that we accept the settlement as agreed to forthwith.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Jean Connor beats to it. Thank you very much. Okay, motion's on the floor to accept the settlement as stated. Is there any further discussion about this settlement? I would maybe just say, and this people will see the settlement, but that part of this is that we will be releasing a joint statement that will say the town of Bennington and Shmuel Alexander have agreed to resolve the case of Alexander v. Town of Bennington in order to avoid expensive and protracted litigation. The allegations remain disputed, and the settlement is not deemed to be an admission of any liability. The case has been pending for nearly 4 years, and it's the desire of both parties to put the matter behind them and move forward. So that will be our statement on this. And it is time to put this behind us. And just a very brief comment, you know, I think ACLU's role in this has been important. And I think as a community, we need to realize that although we're on the other side of things with ACLU in this one, Vermont needs a strong ACLU, and we need to support ACLU in the important work that they do. And keeping this case in court and having it go on for years and years and driving up the legal expenses, even if we sort of won, it would not be a win against an organization that this state really needs. So my recommendation to the board is that we go ahead and sign this and leave it completely behind us and move forward with ACLU and hope for their help as we move forward into this new realm of working on police reform and whatever else comes up. And that's pretty much where I stand. Any other opinions? All right. If not, I would say all in favor of signing this statement, please unmute yourselves and say aye.
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 And any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, Stuart.
Thank you very much.
It's settled. The next item on our agenda is to take the final and last formality in the step of setting water and sewer rates. You remember last week we approved the budgets for the water and sewer rates, and we are now moving into the final phase of making them formal for the upcoming year. Stuart, would you like to explain your math, please?
Sure. Once the budgets are approved, our finance director computes the rate increases or decreases in some cases, but that hasn't happened in a while. This year, we have a unique situation, which we discussed at the meeting last week, and that is the state of Vermont has waived the administrative payments and interest payments on the various borrowings that impact both water and sewer funds. We have then turned around and worked those savings into the budget to the effect that the water rates this year are proposed with no increase. So there will be no change in the water rates for the coming year. On the sewer fund, if you'll recall, we had projected a 10.5% increase over a 3-year period in order to gain sufficient reserves and depreciation funds, given the new $9.8 million expansion of the wastewater treatment facility. In this particular case, the savings allow us to propose a rate increase of 8%, which will amount to $35.10 to the single-family household on the flat rate over the next year. So it's about a little less than $9 a quarter, and we are committing some $158,000 of fund balance to this as well to reduce the impact on the rates and bring this in as low as we possibly could. And so I would recommend that the board approve the rates as proposed.
So to be clear, we had previously approved the 10.5%. You mentioned this, but we had previously approved 10.5% increment steps. This year we had about a $200,000 savings from the state borrowing, and we are also taking some from the fund, which is how we are bringing this down to an 8% increase as opposed to a 10.5% increase. Is that right, Stuart?
That is correct.
Okay. questions from the board?
How does the chair want to handle this? We asked them separately last week, but you know, do we want to do the rates together or separately? What's your pleasure?
I think we should do them separately. I see I have a caller that has pinged in. So before we have a motion on the floor and can't do it, why don't I admit this caller into the call? So caller ending in 196, I am about to admit you into the select board meeting. I've entered you into the select board meeting, caller ending in 196. And thank you very much for joining us tonight. Before I unmute you, I'd ask you to please turn down the volume on your computer or TV, however you're watching this. And I'll now unmute you. Say welcome to the Bennington Select Board meeting. What's on your mind?
Hi, it's Mike Bethel. How you doing?
Good evening, Mike.
Well, a couple of things. One, Stuart is right. You all can attend that informational meeting on Wednesday. You can participate, just like Stuart said. That's not against anything to do with parliamentary rules on your select board. You just can't make a consensus or try to encourage a vote one way or another. But it's an informational meeting that you all can attend. There's a couple of things. Two, I'm disappointed that you didn't have a public discussion before you hired Mr. Reed. I think the groups that brought this about are going to be a little bit ticked off. They wanted you people to be able to sum up that report that we paid $67,000 for, and not do another 6-month study with all of the extra things. I don't think the community really wants to wait 6 months to get some answers from the town staff and the employees and the select board. And why you said it was anonymous for the 20 grand, I don't understand why you said that in the paper either, Don, but.
Yeah, I can answer some of these things, Mike, but I gather we're not talking about water and sewer rates with you here.
Well, no, but I mean,
no, the questions that we should answer, we can address some of these things. Is there anything else on your list?
Yeah, the other thing is I'm doing the mayor thing. I'm going to bring that back, and Bruce Lee Clark's going to talk to you later on, I think, about it. I'd like you people to put it on the ballot, as was last time, in time for November, so that we don't have to go out and get the signatures just like the election, people running for the election with the virus and everything else. I've gathered some, and we can gather more, and we can gather all of them. But I think it would be convenient. I think the people would like to have another shot at that, considering the times that we're in and all the different opinions there are about the town government and issues of what's going on at Bennington. You can't do it this.
Take that under advisement, bring it back for a fourth vote. If that's the way the board feels. I think we're not really working on that tonight, but let me go back just in terms of your, thank you for your perspective on the Curtis Reed meeting. I think we are at the same conclusion. He's somebody we've worked with for a long time. I actually think he's somebody that can help us out. And we, to be clear, the money came from the Vermont Community Foundation, a local partner that has helped us out a lot. It was, yes, there were their donors are local and put money into it, but we don't know who those donors are. But the Vermont Community Foundation agreed after I asked them to help us out so that the cost of this project wasn't prohibitive. And then on your last point on the mayoral thing, frankly, I don't want to talk about that tonight, but we can, as a board, we can decide if we want to talk about that and take it up.
Well, I think you can set up an agenda meeting to talk about it, maybe next meeting. And when are you going to go back to normal meetings? I mean, this is very difficult for the public. I mean,
it is difficult. I apologize.
It's difficult for yourselves too.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what the governor says about that. Yeah. Okay, Mike. Thank you very much. I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Yes, fine.
Great. Have a good night. I have another caller here, which I'm going to admit. And so caller ending in 025, I just entered you into the Bennington Select Board meeting. Right now we're talking about water and sewer rates, but it's difficult to call in. And so as with the last caller, you feel free to tell us whatever's on your mind. When I unmute you, I would ask, before I unmute you, I'd ask you to please turn the volume down on your TV or your radio or whatever it is so that we don't have any feedback. Okay, I've unmuted you, and welcome to the Bennington Select Board meeting. Please give us your name and tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, this is Nancy White, and I have some question about the water bill. First,
Okay.
on the bond water treatment plant, are we paying the same amount each year, or are we paying less the first half and more on the second half?
This is you.
I'm not sure I understand your question, Nancy.
We have a bond on the water treatment plant right now, don't we?
We are actually paying a bond on the water treatment facility. Yes, we are also paying a portion of a bond on the extension of the municipal system to the south side of or east side of Mount Anthony to increase pressures in the higher elevations of Jefferson Heights and Crescent Boulevard. And we are also about to begin to pay a bond for the rehabilitation and enhancement of the wastewater treatment facility. So there are two separate bonds, each impacting each of those funds.
But the bond that we passed a few years ago for the water treatment plant, are we paying the same amount each year on that one?
Yes, and that actually was for the wastewater treatment facility upgrade. We will be paying the way the bonds are set up, we pay the same amount each year in principal, and ultimately we pay an amount of interest, and that interest will slowly change over time, but I believe the payments are level throughout the 20 years of the payment schedule, yes.
Okay, two more questions. The water and sewer bill, I'm concerned that we won't have an increase next year. I understand you have money to make that not happen, but does that mean we're going to see a much bigger increase in next year's bill? Also, why are you using reserve money for the sewer bill this year? Again, won't we see a bigger increase next year because you're using reserve money this year?
Well, what the water, in both funds, by returning the savings on the interest and the administrative fee from the state borrowings, we were able to reduce the rates. Those costs will be built back into next year's budget. Will we see a large increase? No, I believe we were projecting a 2% increase for the water fund over the next several years. We may be back at 10.5% for the wastewater treatment facility because we still, although the budget does include all of the depreciation and reserve funds that we would have in the budget, we made cuts elsewhere so that we would continue to set those monies aside, but we should have one more year at 10.5%. Excuse me, and then we should find ourselves falling back into a 3% plus or minus on an annual basis.
Okay, for the water we sell each year, we keep being told we make $100,000. Nobody ever tells us the cost of the overhead to get that water ready to sell. What do we actually end up with after you pay out the overhead costs?
The overhead costs are incredibly minimal. When the pump station was altered at the expense of Vermont Pure so they could take water from it, they paid for those improvements. All it costs us is a small amount of electricity to run the pump system and the I think it's ultraviolet lighting system that the water runs through. It's very, very small amount of cost. You wouldn't find much of an impact at all on the $100,000 a year that we take in for this.
Okay, and is it possible for you to put a couple of pipes with spigots at the rec center parking lot? It's a shame we have to buy bottled water in Bennington when we have some of the cleanest water right at the rec center. Could we be able to access that water for our own use?
I think it's possible. Whether or not those spigots would be placed in that location is another question. Morgan Spring comes into the municipal system at Bradford Street. If we do extend the system to the location on Main Street, there may be an opportunity to place a spigot on that line, because if you're looking to get municipal water that is untreated, such as Morgan Springs, then you have to take it from the spring as close to the spring as possible. Once that water enters the municipal system, it becomes mixed with the chlorinated waters that are already in the system and is no longer the pure Morgan Spring water, which is why the tap at the spring house is isolated from the rest of the water system. We'd have to take a look at that, Nancy. And that would be a board decision, because ultimately, we're selling that water. We hope to continue to sell the water at a new location. Is there an opportunity for citizens to fill bottles at our location? I'm sure there's an opportunity, Nancy. I just don't know what the logistics of that would be, and that would be a decision the board would have to make at some point in the future.
Okay, thank you. And just, it would save a lot of us getting killed on water and sewer bills, a couple $100 a year if we didn't have to buy bottled water, if we could get it from that facility. All right, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Nancy. Nancy. Donald, you're muted.
Nancy Lively, Jim Carroll left the meeting for a few minutes, but he's back now.
I'm back. I didn't leave. I got dropped.
Okay, so yep, good questions on the water bill. I think the part of what Nancy was getting at that's most probably or the question that most people are wondering about is, so if we're saving money to have an 8% increase this year, does that mean we're having a higher increase next year? I think the answer is no, right? That we have been planning to do a 10.5% increase for 3 years. We've done it once. We're dialing it back to 8% this year because COVID and the social difficulties that are related to that. That next year we'd be likely to see a 10.5% increase, and then it would level out, right, Stuart?
That's correct.
Okay, so for the record, yes, there will be another increase, but by saving money this year during a very difficult year for people, we are not making next year's rate necessarily higher. We're sticking with the plan for next year. Okay, so Bruce, back to your original question. I would say let's approve these water rates one at a time.
Okay,
Motion?
so I would move that we set the water rate at a 0% increase from the current rate. I don't know exactly how to say it that way, but that's what I mean. The rate will be a 0% increase from the current year.
Okay. Do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Gene. So I would say, any further discussion? If not, please unmute yourselves. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Bruce, how about a second very similar motion on the sewer rates?
That the sewer rate for the coming year would be an 8% increase from the current rate.
As budgeted. Okay.
As budgeted.
Do I have a second for that? Sarah, go ahead. Thank you. So any further discussion? If not, please unmute yourselves. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oh, there you go, Jim. Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Water and sewer rates are set for the year. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
For taking us through that. We're lucky to have had those interest savings this year. That was a good thing. Manager's report, Stuart. What have you got for us this evening?
I don't have a lot for you tonight. Certainly no action items. I know it's been noted in the banner, but the Board of Civil Authority voted last Monday to close the North Bennington polling station, which is generally the town office, the village offices there, because it was impossible to create sufficient social distancing to keep the voters safe. So all residents will be allowed to vote at the Bennington Fire Facility in the upcoming primary and in the November election. This may, in fact, roll over into next year, depending on what happens with the pandemic as we move forward. But also, it's important to note that both the primary and the November election will have mail-in voting, and it's being pursued aggressively by the Secretary of State's office in order to keep people of Vermont safe. So if, when the time comes, you wish to vote, you may vote by mail and not have to go to the polls. And those instructions will be forthcoming as we get nearer to the, I think the primary is in August and the November election. Otherwise, I think the PFOA construction continues. I've said this several times before. We are anticipating that all but 2 of the contracts will be completed this year in spite of the delays and slowdowns due to the COVID situation. And we expect that the last 2 contracts will be completed early in 2021. And thereby, all of the impacted residents' wells will have been either connected to municipal water, a new well drilled, or a point of entry system installed on the well to prevent PFOA contamination of the drinking water. And for those homes that are still on the POET systems or the point of entry systems, at least at this point, St. Gobain and the state of Vermont will continue to monitor those for the foreseeable future. So you will have some protection as we move forward into the coming years. So I think that's about all I have.
You're going to take us out of our suspense and tell us if the final punch list items have been addressed?
On the wastewater treatment facility, the contractor actually has just returned within the last 2 weeks to the site. We expect that those punch list items will be finished probably sometime by the end of July. But we are already at substantial completion. The plant is functioning well, I'm told. These are really cleanup items, seating, couple of minor corrections to some of the work that was done on the mechanicals. But otherwise, the plant is functioning well. And we're pretty much back to full operation there. It's been, I think, for our folks out there who work at the wastewater treatment facility, it's probably been a long 1.5 years or so. But we now have things pretty much in hand. We did save money on the RBCs, the rotating biological contactors. Those funds will be not used. I think it's something we're projecting somewhere around $300,000 of savings over the course of the entire contract. It may be that we will come up with some other rehabilitation that the state will find is eligible. If that is the case, we'll use those funds. If not, they won't be used, and we will not be forced to pay them back.
Gene, I see you have your hand up. Have you got a question for Stuart?
We can do it during other business if you'd rather. I've been asked by a few people about what's going on in front of Aldi's.
That is part of the Casella project on the water lines. I don't know exactly what the system is there, but it's probably joining one project to the main system to enhance water flow to a particular part of town. I know it's Casella Construction that's doing it, but I'm not entirely sure exactly what the purpose of that is.
Stuart, that's the Coastal Drive bike ped project underway.
Really?
Yes.
So I didn't realize Casella had that bid. Thank you, Dan.
Casella won that bid. We're very excited. Everything's going well. No big surprises. And hopefully by August, that bike path project will be open to the public. So we're hoping that one continues to go well. We're looking at Applegate hopefully in the fall, maybe if we're lucky, Rail Trail in the spring. So finally, all these projects that have been planned for so many years are starting to come together. And obviously, we're still working on the Ninja Path, where we're down to about 3 rights of way we need to obtain before we can proceed. So lots and lots of work, but finally seeing some fruits of our labor.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
Dan, with respect, I went and drove by there earlier today and saw the work being done for the sidewalks, et cetera. Is there going to be a tunnel for, navigating the highway, or is there going to be a crosswalk?
It's an at-grade crossing with a shelter island in the middle. It's be a push button activated for pedestrians, and that will be constructed as part of this project.
Thank you.
So Jean has her hand up and Bruce does too. Let's take them in that order. Go ahead, Jean. Oh, your hand's not up. Go ahead, Bruce. Your hand's not up.
I didn't put my hand up.
Okay.
Who knows?
Who knows?
I think we should add an assistant manager's report on pathways to the agenda.
Yeah, it sounds like this is going to be a big summer for it, I hope, anyway. Stuart, we have somebody in the waiting room. I'm not sure if they're here for public comment or if they're here to ask a question of your manager's report. So I'm going to enter them into the meeting. So caller ending in 840, I've just entered you into the Bennington Select Board meeting. And before I unmute you, I would ask you to please turn down the volume on your television or your computer, or whatever you're watching Cat TV on, so we don't have any noise feedback. Okay, I've unmuted you. Please give us your name and tell us what's on your mind tonight.
Yes, good evening. It's Samuel Overseen of Bennington, Vermont. Happy Father's Day. It's passed on, but to all those out there that had a good Father's Day, I've got some issues to discuss, and I waited long enough to adhere to the agenda. One thing is, naturally, with our tourists that are coming into town, naturally the town has to hit home on reiterating the washing of the hands, the social distancing, because we've got tourists coming into town. You've probably seen the uptick in traffic. You've probably heard the uptick at lakes up at Harriman Reservoir. It's summer. People are coming into our fair town from other points. And if you read on the news, down south, there has been reoccurrence. And it's just that we still got to be vigilant as far as tamping down the COVID-19 virus.
Very true. Very true. And it's almost time for us to get another update from our chief medical officer.
Yeah, and we've dodged quite a bit of bullets out there with the help of all others. My hats are off to the local mom and pops that are still continuing on with the restaurants and businesses and outdoor seating and trying to address the requirements set by the state of Vermont to accommodate our tourists that come in to our eateries. Second thing, 4 months ago, 2 individuals invested deeply into Bennington. My hats are off to them. That is Bennington Square Plaza, along with 24 acres. I know COVID-19 has come into play. Has anybody out there have heard updates of the Bennington Square Plaza, even if the deal has gone through? I hope it does. I hope we have not lost job lots. As you know, JCPenney's is under the cutting knife. We've lost Hallmark. We need some economic development to our local businesses here. I called them privately, and I have not received any replies on that.
The last word I had from them, Sam, is that they are moving forward with the renovations of the Kmart building in order to bring the business to Bennington. I think they were disappointed in JCPenney's decision to close that particular store, but they are moving forward.
That's great news, Stu. Thirdly, as you know, we had quite a bit of bodies in front of the police department on a Sunday afternoon. I was under the impression that right to assemble would take place at the Four Corners. I've never in my life, in the last 5 years, especially seen an assembly of people on the streets of Bennington, even closing down the road on South Street for 8 minutes. If they have an ordinance in place with a right to assemble of the who, what, why, and where, who's the contact person, when it starts, when it ends, when you come into our streets of Bennington, you leave it the way you find it. And if there was a notification that, yes, the streets of South Street were going to be shut down for 8 minutes, I think people would have been better informed. I propose to the select board members tonight that we draw up some type of a proposal to right to assemble. Manchester has done it with 50 people or more. I think Bennington has to step in.
Okay, Sam. Thanks for your opinions. We're not going to take that up tonight, but I think it's something.
Well, I'd like to see it on an agenda item.
Okay, thank you for your thoughts on that.
Yes, thank you again, and thank you for letting me to speak my mind. Have a good evening and stay cool.
You too. Have a good evening.
Yes, thank you again.
Okay, so we have not. Yes, Stuart, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I received an email following my comments about the Secretary of State and the AG's office on the meeting at Bennington College. This is an email from Joey Culkin, who sent me a copy of a letter from the Assistant Attorney General, who concludes that I believe it could be a close question as to whether the Bennington Select Board's hosting of the Bennington Business Summit on December 2nd was a meeting of a public body, as those terms are defined in the open meeting law. So I stand corrected. We did receive a warning from the AG's office that when the board hosts meetings such as that, although one would argue that it wasn't a select board hosting it, it was a meeting that Tom was hosting, but select board members were there and sat together. So keep that in mind when you attend Curtis's meeting on the 24th.
All right,
not a meeting we're hosting, it's a meeting that he is putting on.
But he's our contractor. It feels to me like, and if he, I would recommend to the board members that are not part of the work team to watch it on Cat TV, which is what I'm going to do, so that we don't have a quorum on the Zoom call. I don't see any problem with those of us not on the work team watching it by Cat TV, and then that will get rid of any question about whether or not there was any impropriety in the open meeting law stuff. So I know I see Bruce shaking his head, overly cautious maybe, but that's what I think the high road is. So anyway, go ahead, Sarah.
I do intend on attending, just in case anybody's being overly cautious as well. I do intend on attending. I believe that we should be there as a select board. I know other people have different opinions, but just in case anybody's overly cautious, I do intend on attending.
Sarah, I don't think, Donald, you're not in.
No, I am not saying don't.
Right.
We all are watching this meeting. We are all going to be. But what I'm saying, Sarah, is that if by all of us being on the Zoom call at once, if we have 4 people or more, and we're disagreeing about this within our little group here, but it feels to me like there is a case that could be, especially with what Stuart just read, that could be a violation of the open meeting law. And therefore, if we really want to play it safe, we could put the work team on the Zoom call, and the rest of us that are going to watch it can watch it on Cat TV, and therefore we will not be in the meeting, so to speak, in the Zoom meeting, but we will be nevertheless with it in spirit. So I'm not sure I can resolve this tonight any further than that, but that's what I'm going to do. I think that would be my recommendation, but everyone will have to interpret the open meeting law standards to their.
Noted.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for making it even muddier, Stuart.
Oh, my pleasure.
I've got one more call waiting to come in. So I think this is one I recognize from having been with us. So caller ending in 025. Before I unmute you, I would ask you to please turn down the volume on your TV or your computer so that when we unmute you, we don't have a noise feedback situation. So caller ending in 025, welcome to the select board meeting. Please tell us your name and tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, this is Nancy White. I've got two quick questions and I'll hang up. The state recently announced that we can have fireworks as long as people watch them from their car. Are we going to go ahead with them in Bennington since we already approved and paid for them? The second question, the crossing on Route 7. About 15 years ago, the state told us we either had to have a tunnel or a bridge for people to get across Route 7 safely. Why did they change their mind and are going to let people cross that either on a bike or on foot? And I'll hang up to hear your answers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I'll answer the fireworks question. No, the fireworks have been canceled. We did not pay for them, and we just didn't feel that we could control the crowds. If we were to hold the fireworks at Willow Park, it would be very difficult to keep people out of the park since our parks are open. It would be difficult to control the numbers of people, even though the numbers of people now at events, I think, has been increased, but certainly not to the several thousand people that I think we see at the fireworks. And there's no way that we could keep people in their vehicles. I've talked about this before. People park on Coker Drive, they park on Performance Drive, they park in the parking lot at the shopping plaza, they park up on the driveways on Southern Vermont College, they park at the country club. There's absolutely no way that you could ensure that people stayed socially distanced and in their vehicles. It just wasn't going to work. And I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Okay.
Dan, you want to answer the question?
Sure. As far as the state's approval of the project, they gave us explicit approval for this project. It goes through a lengthy approval process through VTrans that often takes up to a year for them to do that review process. And they did explicitly approve the project as we were building it. They had never at any time said that we had to build it one way or another. It just had to meet their design criteria, and it does. So we are building it as approved by the state.
Well, and we've seen plenty of versions of it along the way, Dan. I mean, it's gotten a fair amount of airing, for which I'm thankful. I'm glad we're getting rid of that excess lane. You know, I think that'll help a lot, not having to cross 3 lanes all at once, but just being able to cross 2 before you get to the safety area, and certainly having a signal that's based on a push button thing. We know it's a dangerous intersection right now, and people use it all the time, despite the fact that there's no crosswalk there. So I'm glad you were able to come up with the design that we could afford, that we can afford, and that will greatly increase the traffic safety there. So, board, before we move to other business, let's talk briefly about upcoming agendas. Stuart, I'm looking at my sort of monthly thing. Water and sewer budgets are taken care of. The BBC work plan is approved and moved on. We've set the rates. So what is next?
More than likely, we will be proposing tax rates at the July 13th meeting. Those must be set, obviously, for the coming year. And I don't have actually anything else on my desk, Donald, that I know needs to come forward. I'm sure something will show up within the next 2 weeks. But right now it's a tax rate setting time so we can get those bills out.
So I see Bruce and then Jean. Go ahead, Bruce.
Okay. Apparently Mike has decided that, no, we've already had a conversation, and actually I think this is a discussion that this board should have, which is, should we require signatures for petitions like Mike's or anybody else's for that matter? I understand the deep dark hole we could get ourselves in. But I also understand that the Secretary of State has waived signatures for candidates. So for this election, and really this election only. So I'd like us to at least have that discussion. You know, if we want to have it at our next meeting, that would be great. That would make it easier. I obviously already have an opinion, but I'm interested in your opinions, and maybe you can persuade me. I don't know if I can persuade anybody.
Your issue is that you would like to have us consider
waiving the requirement to gain signatures for, for
all items. Anyone can put anything in with no signatures. We could have 50 items on the ballot.
I understand that there could be something like that, but Donald, I actually don't think there will be 50. But you know, California has an interesting process. I just want us to have a discussion.
All right.
That's my point. I want it to be on the agenda.
All right, we'll have a
Okay,
discussion.
that's item 1 for me. Item 2 is really a discussion about balances and the balance sheet and budget status. I'd love us to have a conversation about that, particularly if we're going to have a conversation about taxes. So, and tax rates.
Can you be a little more specific there, Bruce? We do a lot of budgeting. What exactly?
I know, but I'd like to have a conversation around the current status of our current budget and the expenditures they're in. I just think I know it's been on I've raised this before. I'd like us to have some sense of where are we. I'd like us to discuss that we get. And I don't need for it to be a long discussion. I have a couple of questions. I'll probably email Stu with those. But,
Yep.
I think it's important to have those.
Yep.
Finally,
request. It's difficult to read that, and I think, it's difficult. Right. There's no sort of dashboard, sort of like, how are we doing? Are we on track? Are we off track? And
exactly. I think it's an important discussion to have, particularly in the midst of a COVID pandemic.
We nibble that around the edges a little bit with, are people going to be able to pay their taxes, or how are we looking?
Exactly. Yeah.
We talked about it a little bit around the edges, but we could have a. Let me think about that a little bit. We'll see.
Think about how it can happen. I'm not saying Lastly, and I hadn't really thought about it until Nancy raised it, but I really do think it's a fine idea if we're going to move the water pickup, or we're going to try to move that over to the other property, to build into that design, or at least I'd be interested in having us consider to build into that design a place for Bennington citizens to come and pick up a gallon of water so they don't necessarily have to buy it. I think it's worth, and this isn't something that's next month or whatever, but it should be on our agenda somewhere, because I think it's a good idea.
Well, and there would be an expense to it, obviously, and there would be, somebody would have to keep it clean, and there would have to be a certain amount of security around it, and
we'd have to think about what it might mean, but other towns have water taps. It's not
absolutely. Yep. It's just money. We just got to figure out if it's a priority, for the community. Yep.
Exactly.
I don't mean it's just money. I mean, this is a decision that ultimately would have a financial impact on the town.
Of course it would, but it also has an impact on the livability of the town.
Exactly. So that's what we should balance out.
Sure. That's all I've got.
Okay. Other items for future agendas? Jean, go ahead.
Is Shannon on deck to give us a report on, especially like Stark Street, the playground? And we haven't heard from Shannon in a while, and I didn't know if she was scheduled to be joining us anytime over the summer. And the other thing I just want to say is people certainly can buy bottled water, and I like the idea of a spigot that's available, but I don't buy bottled water, so I don't want people to think they have to buy bottled water. Our water is fine, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay. Other items for the agenda. I'm going to lower your hand, Bruce. I think you've already spoken your piece. Sarah, Jim, Jeannie, other agenda items? No? Okay.
Donald, very quickly, if I could, please.
Yes, sir. While you talk, do you mind if I put up on the screen just one last time the call-in information? All right, go
That'd be
ahead.
great.
Go ahead and talk.
Just to answer Gene's question, Stark Street Playground has been entirely rehabilitated so that it now, I believe, complies with all ADA and age required systems for a playground of that type. Obviously, it remains closed for the time being, but staff, I really believe, has completed that work, and once we're able to open, according to the governor, that park will most likely be open.
Okay. Thank you for that. Thank you for your thoughts on future agenda. We're now in other business, which blends somewhat seamlessly to upcoming agenda items. But if there are things that board members want to say, either about future agenda items or about other updates that you have agreed to watch over in this community, this would be a great time to hear from you. Jean, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to get everybody up to speed. I'm not going to read this whole report, but the rec center is open. It opened last Monday. There are restrictions on the pool. You have to reserve a time slot. They're restricting how many people can be at the pool, and we're in the pool at the same time. The fitness center opened. I've been twice personally. They've hired a person to specifically be disinfecting the equipment. There's signage on each piece of equipment. When you're finished, you turn it over and it says stop, and then the person comes and cleans it before the next person uses it. I did ask about memberships, and what they're doing is when your membership is expired and you're ready to re-up, they're going to give you a credit for the time that the rec center was closed. And it was really nice to hear Kayla said many people are saying, that's okay, I don't need it, I'll pay the full year fee, keep it as a donation. Which was really nice to hear. It's such a good deal. So that made me feel great. The staff, when they come in every day, they get their temperature checked. They go through the whole process. There's way more information, which I'm sure is available on the town website. But big news: the locker rooms are opening tomorrow, with restrictions, I'm sure. Safety seems to be a very high priority there, as it should be. So yeah, it's good to know the rec center's open and they're being very, very diligent.
That's great, Jean. Thanks for that update. Jim, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to offer some notes from Montpelier. This past week, the House passed Bill H-966, which includes $875 million that will go to healthcare and human service systems, frontline emergency relief, business and economic development, housing and homelessness, pre-K, pre through K education, broadband and cybersecurity projects, agricultural relief and relief to higher education. We are waiting for the governor's signature and for the principal agencies that will disperse these funds, and they are the Vermont Department of Taxes and the Agency for Commerce and Community Development. My committee worked many long, hard hours late into the evening, and we did all that we could to provide as much assistance to as many Vermonters as we could. And as my chairman said, you know, we did our best, and it may not be enough. It probably won't be enough. But it's incumbent for the agencies, the tax department, and ACCD to get this information out to stakeholders, and we're doing the best that we can.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other business that people would like to share? Bruce, no. Sarah, no. Jeannie, no. Okay. So we are moving into the last item, which is public comment. We do have somebody in the waiting room here. And so I am going to invite them into our meeting, and caller ending in 829. I've just entered you into the Bennington Select Board meeting. Before I unmute you, I would ask you to please turn down the volume on your television or your computer and prevent any noise feedback that we might get. But I'll unmute you now and say welcome to the meeting, and please give us your name and tell us what's on your mind.
Hi, this is Linda Putney calling. I'm calling because I was very disappointed that I know that we've been waiting for improvement on School Street for a couple of years, and they finally started putting in the new telephone poles. I would ask that on your way, well, you won't be going home tonight, you are home, but perhaps tomorrow, if you could drive by 106 School Street, which is the building between the Chinese restaurant and the Unitarian Fellowship. My husband and I own that building, and I think you'll be surprised at the position of the telephone pole. It's right smack in the middle of the building, in front of the porch. When I saw that, I contacted Dan Monks, and he has been trying to get the GMP to move it. I'm not sure where things are right now. It doesn't appear that they're willing to move it. There are various problems about things under the utilities under the sidewalk or whatever, but there are no maps to show what's under there. I don't know how they know what's under there. It's kind of baffling to me, but it doesn't improve School Street at all. It doesn't improve my property to have this telephone pole right smack in the middle of the front of the porch. Also, it's in a historic district, and it just seems weird. And it's going to take me if the pole has to stay there, it's going to take me a long time to get used to seeing that thing there. And so I'm calling to ask that you drive by, take a look at it, see if it were your property, would you want it there? What can be done to move it? A possibility would be to move it at the corner of the house where there's a hydrangea bush. Another possibility is to put it at the edge of this new sidewalk that will be put in. It'll rather than in front of the porch, it'll be out further. But I mean, I'm no expert on this as far as what's under the sidewalk, but there are no maps that tell what's under there. So I guess I'm asking for your help with this situation, and I appreciate whatever you can do.
I have some questions.
Linda, stay on the line, please, just for a minute.
Yeah.
Board questions, I think, or at least we have one. Go ahead, Jim.
Linda, did Green Mountain Power, did they inform you or warn you at any point in time? They didn't? No.
Okay. No, it was just, I saw them digging the one by the, near our driveway at the Chinese restaurant where they have, where their tulips were. And I saw them digging that one. And the next thing I knew, I came back and this pole was right in front of the house.
Because I live in that building, as some of you may not know. And I was equally struck by it. Linda, maybe you want to call me privately and let me know to whom you spoke with at Green Mountain Power.
I didn't speak to anyone. Dan Monks has been speaking with somebody.
Okay, Dan, would you call me tomorrow? Dan?
Jim, just give me a call tomorrow whenever you're ready to chat, or text me.
Okay. Well, we're in session and committee for a lot of the days, so I can't give you a guaranteed time. But Linda, you got no warning, Linda.
No.
Okay. Okay.
Jim, it was part of a project that the town's doing, so the GMP moved them so that we could facilitate the sidewalk redevelopment. So as much as we might want to blame Green Mountain Power, they were doing something to facilitate our reconstruction of the sidewalk.
Right, I understand that, so that the plows can get through there. I understand. But more to you, Dan, were you aware of where the placement, the poles were going to be?
No, because they have to be selected on site when they're doing the project, because as Linda mentioned, it is true, we don't know exactly where all the facilities, the utilities are underground, and they tried to put it on the edge of the home. They kept hitting water lines, sewer lines, everything you can imagine, and they just kept having to move it further and further away from the edge of the home towards the center. So I have talked to the Green Mountain Power representative twice. He's indicated they can't move it to another location. If someone else can get a different answer, then I certainly would not discourage you from trying to do that.
Let's not fully process this tonight. I mean, there are issues of rights of way, and there are a lot of other issues that this board doesn't understand. But Linda, let sort of know that we empathize with how surprising that must have been, and we're sorry for that. But we'll try to get more information on it and see if there is something that we can do to help out. There may not be, but we will take a thorough look at it and see if there's something we can do.
Okay, I really appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
I'm not trying to pick on Dan, but I just, thought maybe a couple of more voices might be able to do something. Okay?
If I had a great big pile of cash, I mean a really big.
I know you put it underground.
Downtown Bennington has put all of those darn utilities underground. Downtown Bennington, that's so great. When I think it was Jim White, or was it whoever had the idea to put trees down there? It felt like it was radical at the time, but now I don't think we could live without the trees. But maybe one of these days we can get the utilities put underground. Once you start noticing, it's really hard not to notice them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for listening. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. So I'm going to look to the waiting room here and say that there is nobody else in the waiting room at this point. So I'm going to call that the end of public comment, which means, and we do not need an executive session tonight, which means that at this point, if unless people want to stay on for another hour on the computer, I would look for a motion to please
move to adjourn.
Okay.
Motion to move to adjourn.
Thank you, Sarah. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. This meeting stands adjourned until our next, and thank you all very much for being here tonight. Thank you, Cat TV, for the wonderful technology you bring us, and thank you, Nancy, for taking great notes. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.